Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. There were a pair of mass shootings that transpired this weekend on both coasts of the country, and both of these mass shootings show us how the man crisis is getting worse here in America, and how America's continuing refusal to acknowledge the man crisis is leading to more and more violence. Now, the first incident that took place was at the Old Timers Festival at Brownsville, Brooklyn, where late at night we had, after the festival was probably getting ready to wrap up, a pair of gunmen decided to start shooting into a crowd where one man wound up dead and 11 others wound up injured. And in another incident at the Gilroy Garlic Festival in California, we had another mass shooter come out from under a stage, and he started shooting, and 3 people wound up dead and 11 wound up injured. And when I take a critical examination of both of these incidents, they clearly show me how the man crisis here in America is getting worse. Now, in the incident that took place in Brownsville, Brooklyn, in New York, it is rumored that this incident had to do with gangs, and we all know that when it comes down to gangs, they are a creation of homes that are usually established by single mothers. And when you have homes established by single mothers, they produce these beta males, and the beta males, because they don't have a father in their life to teach them male life skills and male survival skills. Many of these men are not good critical thinkers. They are not good problem solvers. They are not good at conflict resolution. And oftentimes, their whole way to solve problems is with their 9 millimeters of courage. And they will use that 9 millimeters of courage to deal with anyone who is making them feel angry or frustrated, and usually because many of these males do not know how to use a weapon. Unfortunately, they wind up shooting innocent bystanders, and many innocent people wind up getting caught up in the crossfire of their violence. So that's what I believe it transpired based on the reports I have read regarding the incident in Brownsville, Brooklyn. And when I look at that whole incident again, everybody's going to talk about gun control and stopping the violence and going on marches to stop the violence. Unfortunately, most people won't look at the root of what's causing that violence, and that is these single mother households where these boys do not get taught the male life skills that they need to survive. And because they're not taught any sort of male life skills, this is why these males are emotional, and this is why many of these males wind up getting frustrated and angry, and then taking their frustrations out by using a weapon to destroy the lives of the person who they believe is aggravating them and all of the people around them. Now, this other incident in California at the Gilroy Garlic Festival, this one also fits right in line with the pattern and profile I talked about in my book, The Man Crisis. And this one fits more so than anything else, because when I take a critical examination of this shooter who participated in this mass shooting at the Gilroy Garlic Festival, it shows me an extremely angry beta male who was so frustrated and angry he decided to take this gun to this garlic festival and then just decide to shoot it into the crowd. Now, this Gilroy Garlic Festival did have high security. It had metal detectors at the entrances. It had a fence in the back. Unfortunately, none of this could stop this beta male mass shooter from going out to participate in his violence because, as I've stated before in many videos, when it comes down to these beta males, there is no legislation or any sort of security measure that will be able to prevent these men from participating in their horrific acts of violence, because these men will find any way to participate in their acts of violence. And we clearly see that from what transpired at the Gilroy Garlic Festival, where this beta male decided to cut through a security fence, slip through the back of the security fence, slip through the stage area, and then go out here, load up his weapon, come out from under the stage, and then start shooting. So in the face of all of those security measures, the beta male still managed to find a way to breach that security, and that shows that you cannot use security as a way to stop these mass shootings. Now, in the aftermath of this mass shooting at the Gilroy Garlic Festival, we've had people like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris talking about how we need gun control laws to stop mass shooters. And I'm sorry, you cannot stop a mass shooter with any sort of legislation. It just will not work, because in most cases, as we have seen with most of these mass shooters, almost 90 to 95% of them have bought their guns legally. Most of these men have passed background checks, and most of these men, the only thing that's very common with all of them is the fact that all of them come from single mother households. And all of these politicians seem to keep skirting the real issue as related to these mass shooters. And the real issue is that the single mother households we have established over the last 50 years have bred a group of socially engineered beta males who are extremely dysfunctional, extremely angry, and extremely frustrated. And because they don't know how to make the world work as men, they are going out here and participating in these horrific acts of violence. And this recent Gilroy Garlic Festival shooter, he openly came out and said the reason why he was participating in this mass shooting was because he was angry. And that shows me how this relates to many of these men out here and the violence they participate in, because this one clearly stated how angry he was, and it shows how emotional these guys are, and it proves the point that when it comes down to these mass shooters out here, the reason why they are participating in this violence has to do with the fact that they have not been taught, again, those male life skills. And one of the most important ones is navigating through your emotions, where you feel those emotions as a man, but you don't act on those emotions impulsively, nor do you go out of your way to harm others because you feel harmed. And this is what's the big problem with most of these beta males out here, is we don't want to acknowledge that the way we have been raising boys has created an extremely violent generation of males, or 2 to 3 generations of males, and that all of these men out here are ticking time bombs due to the way we have raised boys in this feminist culture, which told us that a woman could raise a boy to be a man, and that a woman could raise a boy to be a better man. Unfortunately, we see from the end results here from Brownsville, Brooklyn, and in California, that on both coasts, that raising boys in single mother households creates these ticking time bombs. And what's scary for everyone out here in America is we don't know when they will go off or what damage they will do when they go off. And this weekend we saw on both coasts what type of damage a beta male can do when he's angry. Unfortunately, in both cases, all we have are people talking about gun control when we're not acknowledging the real roots of the man crisis here in America, and the real roots of the man crisis here in America are these single mother households which breed these dysfunctional beta males, these males who are taught these female life skills and these female coping skills. And because these men are taught to be emotional, they are extremely irrational. And because they are irrational, this is what makes them ticking time bombs. And what's scary is when you don't know when you'll step on one of these human landmines, or what one of these human landmines will do, or what damage these human landmines will cause. And what's even scarier about these situations is that the frequency continues to increase because we had 2 mass shootings in one weekend. And what's even scarier is that there are even more of these beta males out there, and we don't know, again, when they will go off, what they will do when they go off, or what damage they will do when they go off. And most of America is still sitting there arguing the circular argument of gun control, when the big problem is single mothers just can't teach boys the self-control they need in order to survive in the world, set a course in the world, or be able to navigate their emotions about the hardships of the world. And until we acknowledge the man crisis going on here in America, you can expect to see a lot more violent incidents in America, not just in this season of The Simp, which creates these incidents that are literally like real-life horror movies come to life, but in the possible future, because, again, we have so many of these beta males out here, and no one wants to acknowledge the problem as related to the way we are raising boys here in America, and all we want to do is sweep it under the rug, because no one in America wants to hold American women responsible for the way they have raised boys in these single mother households, nor do we want to hold feminists accountable for promoting their failed ideology as related to parenting, because in order for us to really start working on solutions towards solving the man crisis, we have to acknowledge that feminist ideas about raising boys are complete failures, and we need to start working on investing in men and reinvesting in rebuilding the American father so that he can be the American man who teaches American boys how to be the men God wanted them to be. If you'd like to learn more about why mass shooters participate in the horrific acts of violence they participate in, like these mass shootings and the other spectrum of violent behaviors that these men participate in, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback, Kindle, and you can also pick it up on Smashwords, Barnes & Noble, and the iBookstore. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.